right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to News Talk coming to you from the great state of Texas, where it is a few minutes after 2 p.m. and of course in California it is a few minutes after 12 p.m. in Ground Zero, where we call Ambazonia in West Africa. It is 8 p.m., a few minutes past 8 p.m., and the same thing with Europe. We keep on saying, we want to know who owns the land. We want to know who owns the land. And of course, by land, we are referring to the territory that we call the Federal Republic of Ambazonia today. Good evening once more, and welcome to the show. And please do me a favor, go ahead, hit your share button if you are watching by way of social media, Facebook in particular. Please let us quickly get the masses mounting onto Facebook to be part of this broadcast. Please, I'd like you to stay put. Do not touch your remote. I will be right back in a few seconds. Again, I will be right back in a few seconds. Don't touch your remote. Hit your share button, please. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, and please go ahead and continue to hit your share button. Tonight we're going to be talking about quite a number of things going on Ground Zero, talking about Ambazonia. I am here referring to the abduction of over 3 dozen ladies, women, mothers in the town of Babanki, and they are still being held hostage as I come to you tonight. We'll be having a very special guest here tonight who has been to Cameroon 3 times to have a good feel of the conflict going on there between the La République du Cameroon and the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. And I will delve right into that at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, as you go ahead to hit your share button. Again, go ahead and hit your share button. We want to see the numbers here on the social media jumping, literally jumping as you join. Suzanne Ghais, my guest for tonight, is a mediator, a facilitator, a trainer, and author with 30 years in the field of conflict resolution, including international peacekeeping and peace building. Her additional strength is in helping groups with strong differences to reach agreements and work together. That is what she does for a living. She gained lots of expertise in peace processes, international politics and negotiations, comparative politics, and civil wars through her doctoral studies. In addition to her practice, Suzanne teaches courses on conflict assessment, conflict prevention, and international negotiation at the International Relations Program at American University School of International Service and the University of Denver's Colbert School of International Studies. She is the author of Extreme Facilitation. Extreme Facilitation. Guiding groups through controversy and complexity. In the close to 7 years duration of the Ambazonia-Cameroon conflict, she has been one of the keen observers. She has actually visited Cameroon 3 good times. 3 good times. The last time being as recent as in March. Suzanne says this conflict is one of the most troubling. It has gathered very little international attention. She made the observation on April 21st during an online seminar on the conflict, the Cameroon conflict, titled, and I quote, "Prospects for Peace in Cameroon's Anglophone Crisis." It was hosted at Harvard Law School. Tonight, she will share with us her experience traveling and meeting with different political players and the diplomatic community in Cameroon, as well as delve into possible solutions that can bring unity and collaboration among the diaspora leadership. Suzanne, it's a great pleasure to have you here tonight. Good to have you, ma'am. All right. It is interesting that you have been to Cameroon 3 good times to have a feel for yourself what is going on there. But after traveling there 3 good times, you describe the conflict as the most neglected in the world. What shaped your opinion to think so?
Just for the level of conflict that there is, I mean, it's really a civil war. Thousands of people have been killed, over 1 million displaced. It merits a lot more attention than it's getting.
Right, and you get the figures right. Over 1 million displaced, and we also have over 100,000 refugees, mostly in Nigeria and then other parts of Africa. And there are some entering the USA right now. We also have about, some people say 30,000 killed. Some statistics give 50,000 over the 7 years. We don't have the accurate figures. But in spite of this, again, going back to your own words, the international community pays a lip service to what is going on there. Is it that they just do not care? Or what do you think is the problem?
That's a great question, Chris, and I've been puzzling over it myself ever since becoming interested in this conflict. And it's hard to say. I mean, some people say that President Biya succeeds in keeping the conflict off the international agenda. Some people say it has to do with the French. I think one reason is that, you know, thinking about this as an American, this conflict doesn't fit into our usual boxes, our usual narratives. So if you look, for example, at the war in Ukraine, well, we have already a narrative about the big bad Russians, you know, from the Cold War. Right. If you look at even the conflict in the far north of Cameroon involving Boko Haram, well, that's the war on terror. We have a category in that in our heads. If you look back at the South African transition of the 90s, well, and the protests, the anti-apartheid protests that happened throughout the world in the 80s,
right.
Well, that has to do with a fight against racism. We have a box for that. But, you know, former British territory versus former French territory, I mean, there's no, people are kind of like, huh, is it language? You know, they don't, I think people don't have an existing category to fit it into.
That's a very good point you raised there when you talk about, is it, people say, is it language, is it culture, or what is it? Going down on the ground, being there 3 times, did you see it as a language problem?
Oh, I know it's not just a language problem at all. It's an issue about really a minority that has been discriminated against. That minority happens to be an English-speaking minority, but it's not strictly about language.
Do you think that the international community perceive it that way, especially the diplomatic community back on the ground in Cameroon?
I think that they do. The ones who have taken the time, the diplomatic community in Yaoundé, yes, I think they've come to understand the conflict pretty well. It's the larger public that isn't hearing so much about this. I always have to start with, where's Cameroon on the map, and then what is this conflict? And the vast majority of people had never heard of it. Just ordinary people I'm talking about.
So tell us, who did you meet while visiting Cameroon?
We met with several pretty high-level government officials, as well as several in the diplomatic community, different embassies and foreign missions.
And what did they tell you? And what? Let me put it this way: what did you want to know when you met them?
Yeah, I mean, it takes time, of course, to build relationships. And so that was a big goal with everybody that we met. And so, on the first, second trip, you don't ask too tough of questions. You ask questions, but what we've been trying to understand is, for the government side, what is their attitude towards potentially a peace process? And on the side of the diplomatic community, how much agreement or disagreement is there among them about what should happen in this conflict, and to what extent are they promoting peace process? My organization is called Pathfinders for Peace. Our mission is to promote peace through dialogue and negotiation. So that's the angle on it that we're most interested in.
Right. I understand where you are coming from. You didn't go there to take sides, but to listen, I guess, to the story. But I believe you also asked questions about ending the conflict. What were the suggestions, the proposals they made to you?
I think on the government side, I detected a difference between my second trip and my third. So on the second trip, which was June of 2021, my sense at that time they thought they were winning and could prevail and basically settle the conflict militarily. As you know, the conflict is still going on.
Right.
And so on our more recent trip, the one just about 2 months ago, I detected a shift in attitudes that people in the government were much more open towards the prospect of negotiation. And of course, as you know, there was a series of peace meetings that took place in Canada with a government delegation there. Then we had this retraction or disavowal from the government. So we were trying to understand what had happened with that. We didn't fully get an answer.
Right.
But irrespective of that kind of puzzle, that mystery, we detected a general openness towards peace negotiations that we hadn't really detected in the previous visit.
Since living there, it has been 2 months now. And do you think, hearing what you heard from them, and it's been, again, 2 months today, do you think they really meant what you heard from them? You are talking about prospect for peace, the change of mind, change of mentality. But it's been 2 months. They've walked away from Canada. Do you think they were being honest, telling you they think there's a solution? Now, this is very important because only as recently as 3 weeks ago, before the celebration of what they call 20th May festivities, which is the occasion marking the day that they made Ambazonia a province to their country, essentially ordered their soldiers to do a cleansing of the Ambazonian fighters. Yet, this was just about a month after you left there. So do you really think you met some honest people who really want to bring about peace and justice to the conflict?
It's hard for me to ascertain what people tell me is the truth, but I think the bigger issue is that there are effectively different camps within the government, and this is true in most any conflict. There are hawks and there are doves. There are those who are more inclined to fight and those more inclined to make peace. Maybe we just stumbled upon the doves this time around. There's also the possibility, we don't know how much is being ordered from the top levels of these abuses that happen, and how much is it, rogue soldiers doing things outside of what they have been commanded to do. I don't know the answer to that. But I did detect what seemed to me amongst a small number of people. We only meet with so many people at one time. So among the small number of people that we met, I detected some real belief that a negotiated solution is needed here, that they won't win it just by military action.
Amongst the people that you visited, would you say these were some top-level decision makers in the country?
Very close to top level, yes. Not always like the minister or something like that, but high-level people. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how was your liberty to go around the country? Because I'm asking because I know that some dignitaries have been refused entry into the country, and in some cases denied access into Amazonia. The case of Human Rights Watch, for example, is very glaring, where one of the reporters was turned back from Yaoundé. They refused access. We also know the case of the German foundation leader back there in Yaoundé, who has been restricted to places she can visit. How was yours?
Well, we were only seeking so far to stay in Yaoundé. So we didn't try our luck in getting permission to go to ground zero, as you might call it. I frankly, I'm a little nervous to go to an active conflict zone as yet. We're a small NGO. We don't have a sort of security team or something to tell us where it's safe to go and where it's not. So our access in Yaoundé was absolutely fine.
And also, my understanding is that you met people in the diplomatic corridors in Yaoundé.
Mm-hmm.
Did they tell you there is a solution to the conflict?
What we're gathering is that there is pretty broad agreement in the diplomatic community that on the one hand, there needs to be a political solution, in other words, a negotiated solution. In general, the foreign countries who are interested in this conflict seem to believe that fighting is not the way to get to peace here. They also seem to agree among themselves that the solution should remain within the existing borders of the Republic of Cameroon. I'm sorry to break this to your listeners who I know support an independent Amazonia. I'm not detecting much support at least among official positions of countries that have shown interest in this conflict. There are some individuals, as you know, yes, in Britain, in France, and the US who support an independent Amazonia. But among the diplomats we spoke to, they do believe changes are needed.
I'm sorry, what did you say? Did you say Britain, America, and France would support an independent Amazonia?
No. There are individuals for example, there's this parliamentarian in France who has been a very active supporter.
Correct.
I think I heard a speech or two in the British Parliament, very supportive of an independent Amazonia, but these are individuals. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of the national positions, I am not detecting, I'm detecting support for a robust some change that would substantially change the nature of the relationship between those in the former British Southern Cameroons and the state, but something short of independence. And beyond that, I think they want to let the parties negotiate what that would look like. That's my sense.
But then that is not strange, isn't it, from your experience? Because it always starts with, well, let them settle, let them negotiate, let's put a mediation team together. The case of Southern Sudan, for example, it was, oh, let them negotiate. Eritrea, they can negotiate. East Timor, they can negotiate. Kosovo, they can negotiate. Angola, they can, is it not Namibia, they can negotiate, but it ends up in independence. So you think that Ambazonians should start thinking, well, there is no way out for independence, just negotiate with Cameroon?
At this point, I don't think that any options should be entirely off the table. And it is true, there are some examples of independence that come through negotiations. And there are a lot of other cases where an independence movement agreed to an autonomy arrangement that was something short of independence, such as what's known as the Bangsamoro, the southern Philippines, the Aceh region of Indonesia. You talked about Kosovo. Kosovo is all but independent, but they still are within the borders of a separate sovereign state. So there are a lot of different cases to compare to in the world.
Ambazonians have lately been talking about the option of a referendum. In your experience, talking to different parties in conflict zones, and also looking at some of these countries we've mentioned who had to go through these referenda to gain their independence. If the people of Ambazonia say, or overwhelmingly say, they want a referendum, do you think it's a fair thing to ask for, considering that Cameroon keeps on saying, well, the trouble is coming from the diaspora, the separatists in the diaspora? If the people on the ground, I'm talking because you got some experience here, isn't it, if the people say they want a referendum, is it a fair thing to ask for a resolution of this conflict?
Well, first of all, let me say I really appreciate the idea of trying to find a way to express the will of the people, and not just leaders in the diaspora, but everybody from the area in question, in a peaceful manner. So I appreciate the thinking, the idea. I think the actual execution of a referendum, I just have a lot of questions. So for example, if it is to be UN supervised, how does the UN come in? The UN will never enter a country without the permission of the government of that country, and from the standpoint of the UN, that would be the government of the Republic of Cameroon. So it's sort of hard to get around the need to negotiate even to get to the point of a referendum. In the case of South Sudan, which you mentioned, there was a peace process culminating in an agreement in 2005. And it was within that agreement that it said there will be a referendum at a certain point in time, and then if the referendum went towards independence, it would be granted. By the way, I once spoke to somebody, an American, who had been involved in the 2005 negotiations, and he said that they came very, very close, this close, to an agreement that would keep all of Sudan together. He felt a little bit wistful that they didn't quite get there. But nevertheless, it was a negotiated agreement to have a referendum as part of this larger peace process. Elsewhere, other referendums like Northern Ireland and Colombia, in both of those cases, a referendum was used to ratify a peace agreement. So the public was asked, do you support this peace agreement or not? In Colombia, initially they didn't, although it was close. So then they modified the peace agreement and went back, actually not to another referendum. But anyway, it's in the context of a peace process that these referendums happen.
You are correct, but now we are talking about in the context where Cameroon says we don't want to negotiate. They walked away from the Swiss process. They have now said they didn't dedicate anybody to work on behalf of them in Canada. So, like in the case of Namibia, Colombia, which you mentioned, can the UN come out and say, okay, we can't just sit here waiting for you to kill everybody to have your way. We demand that the people of the southern Cameroons have the right to declare where they want to belong, what they want to be. Can they come in like in the case of Namibia?
So if you had the Security Council vote, the Security Council is the one international body that can sort of force a country to do something. And there, of course, there's the veto. So if France vetoed it or anybody else, Russia, China, you have inaction, which is the sad reality of the Security Council. But in the meantime, I hear your exasperation about the Cameroon government, and that they initially seemed to agree or reportedly agreed to the Swiss initiative and then didn't. At that point, I think that they wanted to put their energy into the national dialogue rather than having a foreign actor mediate or facilitate. And then they reportedly agreed to this Canadian initiative and even sent a negotiating delegation, right. And then again backed out. So there again, I think the issue could be internal splits within the government. But I also would, I know you feel you've been too patient already, but peace processes often do take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or sometimes 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
That is when they do exist, though. Yeah. Right now, none exists. We can say that.
Right now, there are no active negotiations that we know of, right? Sometimes there are back channel things that are done in secret. So I totally understand the exasperation and the feeling of hopelessness around negotiations. But my hunch is that some form of peace negotiations will get started again.
Let me ask you your independent opinion as a mediator, a peace builder, agent. What should be done to bring the two parties together that is not being done internationally?
Yeah, I think there has been some ad hoc coordination among the different countries who've shown an interest. Switzerland, Canada, the UK. France tends to sort of do its own thing, stay a little separate because it has its own relationships with its former colonies.
Yes.
But I think if the international community would speak with one voice in a somewhat more organized way, I think that would help. The challenge that we heard from one ambassador in Yaoundé is that it can backfire, that the Cameroon government is very sensitive to pressure, and so it may actually be counterproductive. Well, okay, so it doesn't have to be public statements, but I still think an organized, unified voice from the international community would be one thing that could help get a peace process going again.
Under President Trump, Donald Trump, Cameroon was sanctioned, taken out of AGOA. Then all military support to Cameroon was also withdrawn. Military support meant for Boko Haram was withdrawn, and we thought that other nations would follow suit by passing some sanctions on Cameroon. Cameroon has walked away from 2 processes, and you think that if the powers that be were really serious, they will begin to inflict Cameroon with some of these sanctions. Don't you think that this could be one of the ways to pressurize that country to sit down to the negotiation table?
I believe those existing sanctions are still in place.
Correct.
I will say, as an American, I have often been deeply opposed to my country's foreign policy. But I also think that sometimes the United States stands up for human rights in a way that most other countries don't, and that is something I'm proud of. Could more be done? It's maybe. You also have to consider that as much as the Cameroon government might, merit some further pressure to shift from armed action to the negotiating table, that same pressure, could be applied to the Ambazonia side. I know you've all been very willing to come to the table, but pressure can go both ways.
Well, that is quite interesting. If there seems to be no mechanism by which the international community can hold Cameroon to account. Because people wonder, for how long do they continue to kill civilians, people they call their citizens? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and short of having a world government that every country would fall under, it's the reality of the international community that countries that do terrible things to their people sometimes, get away with it. Look at the Syrian government, which has now been welcomed back into the Arab Union. Maybe that's the pragmatic outcome, but it leaves people without any sense of justice who have been harmed by the Syrian government. The government of Myanmar, which committed, atrocities against the Rohingya. There have been attempts, there have been fact-finding missions, there's pressure, Security Council resolutions, but it's very hard for the international community to actually force a country to do or not do something. So that's the unfortunate reality.
So
it's unfortunate, but it's the reality, because the UN is an association of states, and those states are not going to voluntarily give up much of their sovereignty.
Well, we get that, but we know that perseverance pays here, because we have seen it in other countries that persevered, that fought on, and that is what Ambazonians are determined to do. Returning from Cameroon after 4 trips, what message did you take home?
Yeah, 3 trips. One of the things that I hope that everybody keeps in the forefront of their minds is ordinary people and what their lives are like. I'm a big advocate of including civil society voices somehow in a peace process to ensure that the voices of the people on the ground are in some way heard in a peace negotiation. It may be that they're a separate delegation in a negotiation, or maybe there's some separate forum that generates recommendations. There are a lot of different ways to do it, but I just hope that the leaders of the 2 sides in this conflict keep a strong eye open and ear open for the voices of the people on the ground who are directly impacted by the fighting and by the whole situation, the whole conflict.
Now, as you know, you certainly have been talking to some Ambazonian leaders. There are 2 sides to this, the Cameroon side and the Ambazonian side. You talked about differences, divisions within the Cameroon side. And I'm sure you must have witnessed quite a number of divisions, I mean, if not many of them, within the Ambazonian leadership, especially in the diaspora. As somebody who has been involved in the conflict management, peace building, how would you approach unity and collaboration within the different factions of Ambazonian leadership in the diaspora? Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me say that this, I call it fragmentation of the movement. Yes. It's not uncommon in internal armed conflicts, civil wars, insurgencies. And it's understandable. Let me say what I mean by that. On the one hand, in any insurgency, there's a strong reliance upon human intelligence on both sides, right? And so That means everybody's suspicious of everybody else. Are you collaborating with the enemy? And that can be on both sides. And so there's a lot of distrust, and it's understandable distrust, and because this is how it goes in civil wars or internal armed conflicts or insurgencies. The other thing is, I think, it's been suggested to me. Emma Osang has a wonderful book out, and she talks about this a little bit, that maybe culturally there's something about having to be number one. Like if you don't win the first prize, there's nothing. She was saying she doesn't remember second, third, or fourth place ribbons being passed out when she was a child. And you also look at the governance of Cameroon, and it's extremely centralized around the leader, the president, essentially. And so I think one important thing to think about is, in a future, whatever you want to call it, if it's Ambazonia, Northwest or Southwest, Southern Cameroons, there's probably going to be some kind of change. And I hope in whatever that new dispensation is, that there will be a lot of different leadership roles and a lot of ways for people to have influence and be prominent and powerful leaders. And so it's you don't have to be the number one. You can be an important, influential leader in a lot of different ways. So I think that's one thing to remember. That's a form of sort of shifting from a scarcity mentality to more of an abundance mentality. And then also just thinking about the benefits of maybe putting your ego on the shelf for a little while and working together, even if that might involve a little bit of risk or a little bit of loss of personal status. So those are two things that would come to my mind.
Now, if Amazonian diaspora leaders were to sit down with you, what would be your approach in saying, this is how you work together? This is where you collaborate. I mean, we're just trying to figure out something that maybe can be of help to the leaders coming together, because in this struggle, in this war, there are very many different areas in which we would like to see collaboration in. For example, communication, foreign policy or diplomacy, the fighting force on the ground, finances, and so on. What would be the kind of directive that you would want to see or give if you were opportune to sit down, say, with the leadership in the diaspora?
I think the first thing I would do is talk to each of those leaders individually and understand, do they have some sort of grievances against the other leaders? Was there a reason they split off, and could I help them talk through that? And maybe, if not agreeing on some rejoining of one organization or whatever, one interim government, at least to work in coordination with one another, maybe work to form a joint negotiating team, which I think some of that has happened, actually. My understanding is there was quite a cohesive negotiating team in Canada.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, I may be wrong. I hear bits and pieces
correct.
from different people. Yeah. Okay. That's the first thing I would do is, are there specific complaints, grievances against different individuals that maybe we could talk through and try to resolve? But more broadly, I would look at, what is it that you're all trying to achieve, and how could you work together? What would be the benefits of that? And talking through, what are the downsides? What's keeping you from working together? And what agreements might you reach that would help you protect whatever it is you're trying to protect? If you're concerned about somebody passing on information to the government or something like that, I don't know what the concerns are exactly. Is there some way that you could reach agreements, give each other assurances, so that you can put those obstacles aside and then work together? So a lot of it is just talking, dialogue, relationship building or relationship rebuilding, building trust, building a common vision, and seeing how you could coexist and cooperate in achieving that vision.
Talking about the Canadian process, the pre-talks that took place, some groups said they were not going to take part in it and they stayed away from it. Then there were some that went there and they actually got Canada to formally take on a process. Now they come back, not a single statement, either from Canada or from the participants. Many of the participants did not even know who was seated there from the Cameroon side. And they will go out and not make a single statement as of date as we speak. Is this the way pre-talks generally would go? That participants will come out and remain mute and the generality of the public will remain ignorant of what they discuss and agree?
You know, this is a great question, Chris, because it is such a difficult issue in negotiations. And first of all, of course, there were the formal statements, the press releases that the Global Affairs Canada made, and then the Ambazonia negotiating team made. So there was that. But
let me make a correction there. The Cameroon side did not make a statement.
Right. Well, Canada, except to say that we didn't authorize the foreign facilitator.
They didn't authorize, and they were reacting to the Canadian statement. And the Ambazonian side did not also issue out a statement. They only issued out a statement to kind of rebut what Canada had put out, the language of the text that Canada put out. They did not put out a statement that streamlined what they discussed and what they agreed in the way forward from Canada. Nothing like that exists. The problem there is the kind of secrecy that the whole thing kind of assume. Now, those who go to Canada come back and they say, all right, we are preparing to go back to Canada for the renegotiations. In others who did not go are saying, all right, we did not go with you, but we support what you arrive at over there. But let's sit down as a team and figure out the way forward, the agenda going forward, how we face Cameroon in a proper negotiation. Is it the wrong thing to ask?
Yeah, it sounds like you're frustrated at the lack of openness about
Correct.
What happened there. Yeah. So in a peace negotiation, as I said, it's a very, very tricky issue because on the one hand, secrecy can be very, very helpful in enabling negotiations even to start and to make any progress. Because when there's an audience, when there's more transparency, what happens is that people tend to make speeches to appeal to their constituents rather than genuinely engaging in dialogue. You need to be able, in a difficult negotiation, especially on an armed conflict, right? It's going to be really difficult decisions that somebody's going to have to make if there's going to be peace, right? It's very, very difficult to start playing with ideas if you are worried about being quoted in the media and social media and so forth. And so secrecy can be really, really helpful. However, it can be also taken too far. And one great example of this, and there's a book about it that I think I mentioned in my Harvard talk, written by one of my mentors, Anthony Juaniz St. John, about the Middle East peace process and how heavily, this is Palestine, Israel, how heavily it has relied or did rely over the years on secret talks, including in Oslo in 1993, which created this amazing breakthrough. It still wasn't a comprehensive agreement. It was a partial agreement, but still a massive breakthrough. But because of the secrecy, I mean, the secrecy on the one hand enabled that breakthrough, but on the other hand, the secrecy prevented the negotiators from building support for the painful concessions that needed to be made. And that is, I think, part of the reason that ultimately it wasn't fully implemented and fell apart. So secrecy it's a really tricky thing. I think in the early stages of a negotiation, it's justified.
Correct.
But also, I've also argued for inclusivity of negotiations, inclusivity including of civil society groups, as I mentioned before, but also inclusivity of all the major armed groups as well.
All right. Secrecy has to do with policy. But the people you are negotiating for, don't they deserve to know what you are discussing with the enemy, what you are agreeing with the enemy?
Well, I think the more often that negotiators go back to the people they represent and saying, here's what's on the table, here's what we're talking about, here's some ideas that have been put forward.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about.
I think that is important, yes. The timing, again, is very tricky, especially in today's world of social media, but I do think that back and forth with the general public that is represented by those negotiators is at some point in the process very important, at least before any major agreements are made.
If you were an Amazonian, what would you be doing to make sure that this conflict is brought to an end expeditiously? That is essentially, how do you bring Cameroon to the table?
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to bring up, which is really about getting international sympathy for what the people of the former British Southern Cameroons have experienced. There is an argument that's a legal historical argument that the joining of the Southern Cameroons to the Republic of Cameroon was not legitimate. It wasn't properly, formulated. It wasn't legitimately done. And there are also counter arguments to that, by the way, that I've also heard.
I would like to hear that counter argument. What is it?
Yeah, I can't cite the specifics. The argument that the elites of the Southern Cameroons were in favor of it at the time. I'm not a historian. I don't know.
No, you are right. You are absolutely right. You are correct. We know the elites were in favor of it through manipulation. But go on. Go on.
Could be. I don't know enough about the history myself to take a stance on that. But the whole argument, as somebody from the outside trying to understand the grievances that are going on, that argument, I mean, I do get it, but it leaves me somewhat cold. It seems kind of bureaucratic and legalistic. When I hear, and I don't that often unless I ask, what are your personal experiences of this conflict or of growing up as an English-speaking Cameroonian and so forth? Those are the things that really move me. And in fact, I kept this one story from the BBC, this one article. It's called Cameroon's Anglophone Crisis, Fueled by Student Rejects and Poor Spelling. Well, that's a humorous title, but it refers to the poor translation from French to English of exams and things. This came out November 5, 2022, and I believe it was written by Tony Vigneault. So let me just pull an excerpt or two here.
Okay.
He's talking about his cousin who applied to medical school. Vigneault is apparently an English-speaking Amazonian / Cameroonian from the Northwest or South, from the Northwest, I believe. He writes, when I accompanied my uncle and daughter in 2016 to check her medical school entrance results, I knew she would not make it. At the entrance of a campus in Bamenda, the main city in the Northwest region, were hundreds of science students who had all passed their A-levels, scrambling to find their names on the notice board. Most of them had not made it. And a little later, he says, the odds were stacked against my cousin and all English-speaking Cameroonian candidates trying to get into a government-run medical school. The medical school entrance was in English, with questions often poorly translated from French, making some of them incomprehensible and marked, or in the in US English, we'd say graded, by those who are not proficient in English. So very few English-speaking students are accepted. So here I am, I'm somebody who went to graduate school and applied. I've got kids, applying for colleges and so forth. That sounds like something that would really anger me,
Right.
Later, further on, because there are so few English-speaking doctors, there's a man who had surgery for testicular cancer, but because his doctor didn't speak English, he didn't understand he had to come back for a follow-up visit, and he died. That's tragic. Later on, a story. This is the last one I'll pick from here. The author writes, since the uprising began, many more French-speaking police officers have been sent to patrol the streets of Bamenda, where they constantly check IDs. They get angry if someone cannot speak French, demand money at roadblocks, and sometimes force young women to share their phone numbers.
Correct.
I mean, this is I have daughters, and I'm imagining, if some cop tried to demand my daughter's phone number in exchange for letting her free, or whatever, I'd be outraged. So these are the kinds of stories that are relatable, and they're humanizing. If you think about the Ukrainian, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the tremendous sympathy that Ukrainians have gotten in the West, I think one of the things that you see, what goes along with that, is these very humanizing stories about ordinary people. They've lost their homes, or trying to locate their brother or their mother, or things about family, about school, about day-to-day life that help people relate.
Susan, you make a great point there. The point that Ambassador Thibault Naj has been trying to make lately to the Amazonian community. He has said again and again and again, quit looking at the mirror and look at your windshield. Talk about what you see today, the humanitarian situation of today, and quit talking about the history of yesteryears. And you are here repeating the same point. And I just hope that lots of people get what you are saying out there. Go ahead, please.
Well, I think you understand my point perfectly,
Right.
and so I won't belabor it. But real people's real stories are moving, and they're humanizing, and they're relatable to somebody who might live thousands of miles away.
You do these seminars once in a while. Do you plan on doing one anytime soon on this conflict again?
I'm sure I will. I haven't been invited to another one other than this show, so no. At the moment, I don't have further plans for speaking engagements, but I'm sure ones will come up. I'll let you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Soon, it was great to have you. I will get back to you one of these days, and let's talk a little bit and see what we can do together in the future.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
You too. Best wishes to you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take you over to the other segment of this show today. We're going to take you to the other segment of the show today. Thank you once more, Suzanne, for being part of the show today. I look forward to having you another time.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Please don't touch your remote. I will be right back. I will be right back. When I come back, I will be discussing about, I will be bringing you my monologue on the women, the abducted women in the Babanki. I will be bringing you my monologue on the abducted women in Babanki. Don't touch your remote, and I will bring in my panel after that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment I bring to you my talking point on the recent abductions in Big Babanki. I believe most of you out there have seen the gruesome images emerging from Big Babanki of some of our mothers, women abducted by supposed fighters, maltreated. It has been brought to the attention of the interim government that close to 40 Amber women in the town of Big Babanki are under the custody of some fighters supposedly fighting for Amazonia. However, there are conflicting reports, especially coming from the social media, as to the real identity of the perpetrators. Let me be very clear here, ladies and gentlemen. We here at this interim government are not, again, we are not going to sugarcoat or attempt to cover up what is crystal clear was an act conducted by rogue fighters supposedly fighting for Amazonia. The idea that La République du Cameroon soldiers set up the women to protest against Amazonia freedom fighters is laughable, again, laughable, inaccurate, and an effort to promote wrongdoing by some stakeholders in this struggle. We cannot call out the dehumanizing deeds being perpetrated against our people by Ayaba Cho's ADF fighters and then choose to protect some other fighters doing exactly the same thing. In Batibo, the ADF, the mount road barricades, extort heavy sums of money from pedestrians, and have imposed other heavy monthly levies on both men and women in same communities. On the stretch of road linking Bamenda to Mbengwe, going for 3 months now, the ADF has again mounted roadblocks barring people from Mbengwe from using it, while at the same time they open it up for the enemy's army. People living in Mbengwe have to go through Bali to get to Bamenda, the chief commercial city where most household merchandise is bought. In Indor, General Sagon erected a 3-month barricade on Sabga Hill, unnecessarily punishing the people of Ngoke Tunja to have to divert through Imbunda to get to Bamenda on a daily basis. And we all condemned it. We all condemned it. We will not mince words here. This case in Big Babanki isn't any different. We know exactly when people are coerced by La République du Cameroon's army and elite to go out and protest Amber. And we know when it is not. We have seen them before. We saw them in Oku. We saw them in Boya once. The case of Babanki is different. The women were not coerced to protest. They were not La République du Cameroon propaganda material. They had legitimate grievances. They were out for the right reasons. They were being extorted by rogue fighters. That is just what it is. We must not, and again, we must not promote a precedent that can then spread like wildfire to other fighting units across Amazonia. If we should allow it or tolerate it, it becomes a serious threat to the struggle. It turns the population against the struggle. It squeezes financial support and moral support from the struggle. At that level, we will no longer be able to stop it or control it. Therefore, we must all condemn it vehemently and do everything possible within our powers to stop it the moment it raises its ugly head. That is what we must do. I know you will undoubtedly be saying that this message is a reversal of the previous one sent out by your communication secretary. Of course, yes, that is true. Our communication secretary acted out of the limited information at his disposal at the time. But having gotten details of the abduction coming to us, we are better judged saying and doing the right thing than trying to be politically correct. We will not do that here at this interim government. The truth is that the Babanki women were abducted because they protested illegal levies on them by rook fighters not belonging to this struggle. The women were being taxed 5,000 francs and men to pay 10,000 francs monthly. On top of it, for over 2 years, the same rook fighters have made it a living hell for everybody in Babanki and the Boyo periphery. They really went to work to fight the enemy. Instead, they mounted checkpoints on the stretch of road to regularly extort civilians. That's what they were doing. This has gone on for close to 4 years, unstopped. Farmers from Boyo and Big Babanki cannot get their produce to Bamenda. And no merchandise leaving Bamenda can get to the population in Big Babanki or in Boyo. Public transporters refuse to ply the road because of the reckless extortion from these rook fighters. This is what the women in Babanki, Big Babanki, were protesting against, and they have the right to do so. When people fighting for freedom turn against the freedoms of the very people they are supposed to be fighting for, nobody, and again, nobody should be choked from protesting. If we hate it when it happens in Batibo, if we hate it when it happens in Pinyin, in Ndop, in Mbengui, and anywhere else, we should equally detest and condemn it in the case of Big Babanki. We call for the immediate and unconditional release of those women. It is an aberration, an abomination in our culture for boys to go after their own mothers, arresting them, shooting some, and torturing others. How can boys carrying guns want us to believe that women carrying sticks were such a threat to them? Nobody loving this struggle and seeing those images emerging from Big Babanki from the comfort of their living rooms can support it. I don't think anybody can support it. Those women, one of them could be your own mother or your own auntie. I don't care how good a fighter you may be. I will not accept that to happen in my own county, not to my own mother. You should not accept it or support that in your own county either. It is no longer the war we fight against La République du Cameroon. It is alienating support for it. It is inflicting more pain on our people. It is leaving them more impoverished than ever. But it is even more troubling that some of the people who rush to defend the criminal and cowardly acts of the rook fighters do not even know them. They support them without knowing who they are. They don't know what chain of command they belong to. We must be very careful trying to associate everybody with a gun with amber fighters. Not everybody carrying a gun is amber. If we make the mistake of lumping everybody with a gun as amber, then such cowardly acts stain the reputation and the integrity of the real ARF who are doing the right thing out there. Plain and clear, the interim government does not know those fighters, those rogue fighters who abducted the women. They are not the ARF that we know. They have occupied that stretch of the road for close to 4 years. And all they do is constitute a nuisance to the locals and those who use the road. They have never had a single confrontation against La République du Cameroon soldiers on that road, despite the fact that La République soldiers have a permanent checkpoint on the same stretch of road. The La République military uses it on a daily basis. They have never been attacked. But when civilians do, they are attacked and harassed to pay heavy indemnities. Sick civilians are regularly blocked from getting to Mbingo Hospital by these rogue fighters. In fact, a woman just told us how she had to cough out 20,000 francs recently to the cowards before she could make it to Mbingo Hospital for treatment. The money went into the hands of the driver, who in turn settled the cowards for the woman to get to the hospital. We are told that other sick people have to travel on foot from Big Babanki to Mbingo Hospital for treatment, because not all of them can afford such exorbitant charges or call it extortion. When transporters are not able to pay the charges, they are prohibited from using the road. But guess who suffers? The civilians, our own people. They suffer. Legitimate restoration fighters in Boyo have intervened over the years to get those rogue fighters off the road. They have tried severally to negotiate with this criminal gang to stop the harassment, but the rogues will not listen. No change. It is therefore time that we all join our voices and bring it to an end. Bring it to an end. And let me say something about this idea that tasking civilians to fund the war is the right mentality, is the right thing to do. I say no, it is not. It is called extortion, not taxation. We still have thousands of businesses out there belonging to Francophones and the colonial regime in Yaoundé in our territory. You want money for anything? Go after them. Task them, but leave the civilians alone. Go after the enablers and the so-called elite who wine and dine with the regime in Yaoundé. There are still many of them out there, but please, leave the civilians alone. In prosecuting this war, we must strive all the time to make sure we separate good restoration fighters from the rogue ones. If we don't do that, we risk all of them being painted with a broad brush, and the damage becomes collateral. Legitimate fighters must start to speak up too in condemnation of such overreaching. Legitimate Ambazonia restoration fighters must seek to separate themselves from recalcitrants who attack civilians instead of attacking the enemy. You do that for the sake of your own integrity. That is what it should be. That is what the genuine restoration fighters should be doing. However, having said this to our people, and I mean everyone on the ground, this struggle is about you. It's about your freedom and the freedom of your own children. You should never accept to be used by the regime, not for any reason. The reason why the rooks who abducted these women try to put it on some other quarter is because there have been known cases in the past of women coerced by the Yaoundé elite to protest Amba for no good reason. We know, for example, the case in Oku, Boya, and I think in the Indian too. We will vehemently condemn any group of people who are coerced to protest legitimate activities of the legitimate Ambazonia restoration fighters. And we have done it before. We carry out spirited condemnation of the Oku women and the women in Boya, paid and sent on the street in the guise of peace advocacy, whereas their real mission, their real target was advocacy for a clampdown on the restoration fighters. We will do that again when we find out women are coerced to go out against legitimate fighters. My own brother has died fighting in this war. I know firsthand what the real AROF go through. We will defend them. We will back them. We will speak for them. But the rogue ones, we must shift them as they say. The one bad cocoyam spoils the whole pot of fufu. The one bad cocoyam spoils the entire pot of fufu. And that is my monologue to you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I am being joined tonight by Comrade Mike Fossey, who also doubles as my communication secretary here at the interim government. I think I am also being joined by Comrade Sikot Judson from Europe. Good to have you guys here, comrades Mike and Judson.
Yes, Comrade Chris, it's nice to be with you today to bring some clarifications to some of the topics you've talked about.
Thank you. And Comrade Judson, again, it's a privilege to have you on set, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chris, and it's a privilege too to be here. And this is an Ambazonian call. The people that were treated that way are our mothers, and so I couldn't get such an invitation and stay back. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Chairman Mike, let me start with you. You issued out an audio previously taking the line of thought that these abducted women were coerced to go out and protest by the French Cameroon army. But we have long learned otherwise, that indeed those who abducted those ladies were rogue fighters that this interim government hasn't known them fighting anywhere other than engaged in extortion.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Chris. When this incident happened, what we did in the communication department was we dispatched someone to go to the scene and to find out exactly what had happened. So unfortunately, this person that was supposed to be the eyewitness reporter got there, and the perpetrators of this act manipulated, deceived him to send in a report which we used for our initial announcement. Now, after that incident, we started getting some other contrary reports coming out. And so we did further fact-finding efforts, and it came to pass that the information that was given to the person that went there to collect this initial account were not entirely true. And not only that, the information was not even complete, because the information we had initially did not even indicate that these women were still being detained. The information we got was that the women were free. After that incident, and women were free. But it is now that we have this new information, it now gave us the opportunity to revise our previous statement and to say that those who were actually involved in this incident were not the initial ARF that we had thought, and that their reports, because they met someone who was supposed to be in charge of the ARFs that did this, or the rock fighters that did this. And it is through their handler, the handler of the boys, that this reporter was deceived. That is the information we're getting now. So this reporter on the ground did his best, but he just was outsmarted by the manipulations of those who were on the ground who actually did this act.
Thank you. Comrade Jusen, are we in agreement that these abductions were conducted by rook fighters that we cannot identify belonging to the restoration force fighters on the ground?
Comrade, let me first of all say that, like in business, they say the customer is always right. In the war that we are facing, I will always stand by the civilians. The worst part of it is that they are mothers, our parents, that have been arrested. There is no way I will stand on behalf of the boys. However, let me say that there are situations that even parents are instrumentalized. Number two, if there is any information out there that any woman is held under captivity, it is a lie. Those women were not held for more than 2 hours. Those boys were even released.
They have all been released?
They were all released the same day. In fact, those women were taken to the hospital by the same boys. I have tried to talk to them. As I'm talking to you, there is a man I'm talking with, identity held, who is speaking between the chief, the assistant chief, and the boys.
Which chief are you referring to? The chief of Babanki or what?
The same chief of Babanki who lives in Yaoundé, whom I will say that the boys have their grievances with the chief. Yes, because the chief is collecting development fees from the people.
But
and the boys think that
got to do with women, mothers.
No, the boys think that the chief should not collect development fee during war.
What
and then
has
the
that
mothers
got to do with mothers?
That is the same thing I'm talking with you, that mothers came to protest because they were coerced by some forces. Now, what I learned, please, I'm not from that environment.
How about the fact that these women were being asked, levied to pay 5,000 francs and 10,000 francs every month?
I agree with you that we should never ask ransom or fee or taxation from anybody on ground zero. We should not. And even if I'm wrong that they were not asked this money, please forgive me. But from the intelligence I got from ground zero, this woman come from a different region of Baba, which is in the interiors. None of those women come from the city center of Baba, Big Baba, Babanki. All the shops that we have spoken to have said none of them have been tasked. The citizens around the city there, none of them have been taxed. However, I have got information that the boys agreed with school authorities that school should go on, but all those private schools must pay 2,000 francs per student that is going to school, which I also say it is wrong. You don't tax our people.
But hold on there, Comrade Justin. You speak as though you know these boys. Who are they? Where have they been fighting?
That is very true, because the boys have not had missions. They have not had successful missions for quite a long time. I happen to have been speaking with people from Tuba who are struggling to rehabilitate these boys. But we know of a certain Musa that who is one of the military people that succeeded to take off Amber from the Tuba generally. The Big Babanki is part of Tuba. And this man finished clearing off most of the Amber and is now in Goketunja, mostly around up, trying to take off the boys from there. These boys have not been working, but their actions are along the roads. I cannot deny that. I don't know a lot of those actions they have been doing, but I know they are struggling to come back. But the night before this incident, those boys were out. Unfortunately, I received a video of a bombardment on a military convoy, on a night mission, which brought down one of the ammo cars. Upon their return at 3 a.m., they were trying to rest before this woman came out early in the morning. And they confronted this woman. And if the information I'm getting, even plus the audios and discussions which I've got, including audios from the chief, which I will not be good to release.
Comrade, again, you describe them as though you know them. Who are these boys and who have they been fighting for? Who have they been collecting this money for?
As I said, if they collect money from the roads, it is a problem that is happening all over the territory, and most of our boys are dying on the road. This is wrong.
That is only popular in the Big Babanki, as we say, and Batibo, where the ADF has been doing that. Even in Ndop, where Saigon blocked the road, they were not extorting money from people. They merely blocked the road. This is happening in Babanki and Batibo, where ADF takes people ransom. Do you know these boys?
Let me say that even including when the forces of Batibo were under the interim government, they were always on the road. It is not just particularly to the ADF.
Again, they did not
I know I don't work for the ADF. I will never work for the ADF.
The only people known
when
to be
bad is bad, it is bad.
The only people known to be extorting from civilians are the ADF
Extortion, no matter who is involved, sir, extortion is bad. Anything you do against our civilians, it is bad.
As if they did the right thing, which is why I'm asking you, do you know them?
I am not protecting those boys. I said our civilians are the priority.
Do you know those boys?
We should never.
Do you know those boys in Babanki?
I have not worked with those boys. I am talking with people that are in the diaspora that are handlers with those boys.
And what do they say?
And they're talking with them and sending audios, both from the chief and from the people, and even including the women. And that is why I'm trying to tell you that we should not also play into the narrative of La République du Cameroon. There were more than 40 women that were caught. Those women, as I heard, were not brutalized. 5 women came afterwards. Amongst the 5 women that came,
on the leg, one was shot.
Yes, that is why I'm trying to talk about those ones. I'm trying to talk about those ones.
But you said no one was brutalized.
I said the 40 that were down there first, 5 more came afterwards when those ones were being interrogated. Those who came were rude, rugged, and were countering those boys particularly. And the leader of that group was amongst the 5 that came later on. Because of that interchange, they got 2 women beaten. And that one that is wounded on the 2 legs and is talking somewhere, that is not the video. Maybe I can show you the particular video where that particular woman, the particular one I'm talking about, that caused this problem. There is I don't know if you can see my video.
I cannot see your video. The lighting is distorting it.
The lighting is very poor.
Yeah, the lighting is
What I'm
distracting
trying
you.
to say is that the confrontation which was wrong is that the boys got, because of the women who are angry and talking, they had disagreement, they fought. They got those two women beating. And they were the same people who took those women to the hospital.
But
And I was the first person.
excuse me, comrade. Again, the question you have not answered is, for what reason did they pick up those women? You started by talking about the chief working with the CPDM, and I am still asking, because I know what you have said, you are talking to the handlers of those boys. For what reason
the handlers.
did they take those women? Do you think it is good publicity for this struggle?
Never, never. We should never. I come from Batibo where my people have suffered too much. And so I should never promote anybody. I've been quiet within the issues that are happening in Batibo because of many reasons. But as I am trying to say, I will never defend any restoration fighter that torments our people. I will not also promote anybody that will put yourself in between La République du Cameroon and our boys, that will cause confrontation and loggerheads that will put you at jeopardy.
In this case, though, that is irrelevant because we have not heard that they were coerced by La République to confront the boys. I'm surprised that you will not even.
Those women came out to protest against the boys.
The extortion from these women.
I told you that the extortions that I know in Big Babanki is that they are taking money through schools. No, that's what I've got.
No, they actually task these women with their husbands 5,000 francs and 10,000 francs. But let's agree. Let me agree with you. They levied schools to pay whatever amount. I don't know. What are they doing with it? Where are they fighting?
Exactly the point. Why should you collect money? If you collect money from school children through the school, that levy goes back to the parents. It is wrong.
All right.
It is very wrong. We should never encourage that.
To make a point.
I think my concern is this: as much as we can talk about what has already happened, I'm more concerned about what is ongoing and will be happening in the days ahead. So my question is this: do we know that if the supposed tax that was levied against these women has been rescinded? Are they still going ahead with the collection of this money, or since Comrade Justin says he knows the handlers of these boys, has he talked to them and have they ordered that this practice be stopped henceforth?
Sir, I got it from high authority, including most of the women. Those from them said no money was taken from them. That most of the money they are saying, that most of the stories they are hearing from social media is not from them. I have asked, how can women be with empty breasts? And then you tell me that you did not brutalize them. I have an audio here coming from some of the women saying that those audios from those videos from those women with the breast open is not at the incident that happened. It happened after, because there were people who are interested to promulgate this problem to become a problem against Amazonia.
No, comrade, look at these images. Are you telling me that these pictures are lying? There are women here. If this video should go through, you will see women seated without tops.
This woman seated down is the actual interrogation. But after this interrogation, there are women that had wounds because of the 5 that came out that were taken to the hospital by the same boys. And then they ran away from this place because military could meet them. But those ones you see with the bandage and then with the breast open are those that particularly some people have now taken interest to snap those videos and send out and promote that particular incident.
Again, comrade,
I don't know if you get that.
I am very disappointed that everything that comes out of your mouth is to promote, is to endorse this illegal behavior, this illegal activity. We don't care whether they took the woman to the hospital. They should not have been arrested in the first place.
I don't know if I'm having any disagreement with you about that.
No,
I
the
said it
disagreement
is not.
is that you are trying to say that, oh, the boys didn't collect money from them. The boys took them to the hospital. Why were they arrested in the first place?
I want to ask you, Comrade Chris, if you are a fighter, if you are on ground zero, you are just coming from a tax. I have told you here that those boys were coming from a mission against the Republic of Cameroon, and there were guns. Getting to their village, there were women protesting against them.
How come we
And
hear,
then this
how
incident
come
occurred.
we don't hear about their mission? We only see about it. We only hear about the women they abduct. What was this mission? Can
Have
send
you
me the
not
images
watched?
for the mission?
Because you are listening from the enemy.
No, I'm
Have
not
you
listening
not
from
watched
the
a
enemy.
video
I'm
of a
listening to the
bombardment
facts.
at night? Have you not seen the video that an Amuka was bombed at night?
Where was that?
That same big Babanki.
No,
The
the
night
only
preceding the day this
Amoka that
woman
has
was
been
born.
burned recently was burned in Bongay, I believe. Am I right, Chairman
There
Fusi?
was a bombardment in
Yeah,
Big
that's-
Babanki
I'm
that
hearing-
night, sir.
I'm hearing of this one for the first time. Even
Correct.
if there was something in that around that vicinity, I don't think it was around the same period.
It was in
I think it
Bongay,
was-
in
And that
Meme.
is, and I am
I-
telling
I've
you,
not
Big
heard
Babanki
anything like
had
that.
a
I haven't
bombardment
heard
that
anything
same night.
like that.
I can send a video to you right now as
Send
I'm
it to
talking
me.
to you.
Send it to me,
It was
please.
the same night.
Send it to me,
I'm saying
please.
to you now.
Send it to me. Let's see it, because again, we have not seen that. We've not heard about it. We've only heard about these ladies. But please, let's not make the mistake. Secret, we have not known these boys in Big Babanki fighting anywhere. If anything, the people in Babanki, the people in Boyo, they complain. They are being extorted on a daily basis. You just heard me read the story of a woman who had to pay 20,000 francs through the driver to get to Mbingo Hospital. Come on. This should not be happening, and we should not be protecting it by any means. This war is not against our own people.
Look, Mr. Chris, I know I can never protect those boys. I don't know. I don't have any particular contact with a fighter there. And if you know, my main problem I have with the people on Mugamo is because I fight for my people. And the people, the handlers that derail them or make them have problems with civilians are the highest problems I have. So I will never support those in Big Babanki. But I will not also stop to say, please, civilians, let us be different. Let us not allow ourselves to be used. Number two, our mothers were beaten. So those boys had no excuse to tell me it was out of anger. We should not. We should never. I have changed lots of fighters who think they can do things anyhow because they have a gun. It is wrong. The videos we saw with women, our mothers empty, when I watch, I wipe my eyes because it's terrible to watch. We should never leave it. And so I am I am happy with you by shouting at every fighter to stop this. It is not an act to be promoted. In the activist forum, I called those fighters, some of the handlers also who happen to be activists and others who are not activists that do not defend these boys. They have wronged the boys. They have wronged the people and the population. I continue to say that. But I will not also go without saying that our mothers should not allow themselves to be used, because the woman who called them to come out and protest was not there when they were being hurt. They were not there.
Mr. President, you are muted. You are muted. Mr. President, you are muted.
You are muted.
You are muted. Microphone.
Okay, we all agree on that. Thank you. We all agree on that. But the point is that in this case, the woman did nothing wrong. And you talk about the activists. I'm surprised I haven't seen any activists out there coming out to condemn that act of adoption. And the very idea that these boys will go out extorting money from impoverished people. Where are the activists?
Mr. Chris, do you know the first person that condemned this idea? I believe that you heard this thing from me.
No, I'm not hearing from you.
I did not. Where was video that? Against the boys.
Where was that?
I made a video which is on my page. The last video I made, I was the one against the boys for beating mothers.
I will need to hear it to believe it. But let me bring in Mike Fusi here, sir. Mike, you come in here because this thing is very troubling. We see now the international media carrying this story, painting all our restoration fighters black, whereas we have boys in the bush who have done their best to maintain their integrity and the norms of war. But you have a few black legs or whatever you call them, like this one in Babanki and in Batibo, the ADF in Batibo, trying to get all of our fighters painted with a broad brush. Shouldn't we be condemning this at all costs?
Absolutely, Comrade Chris. And this is a very unfortunate thing about such behavior, because when these things happen, it gives aid or gives a storyline to our enemy to go out there and paint us as terrorists, as criminals. And this is why we have condemned this behavior severally on this very platform, because by going out and doing it, now here we ought to be talking about things which I was talking forward. And here we are talking about something that we are now trying to fix something and to clean our image, when we ought to be talking maybe about the referendum or something else that is that we're going to add a benefit to this struggle. But these people who go out and do these things, they must understand that it has a damning effect on this struggle. It has a damning effect on this struggle, and that is why we try to go out there and actually find out what exactly happened. And as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, our field reporter was kind of amateurish and was taken advantage of. Because in news reporting, it's like solving a problem using a formula. If you feed in the wrong data, the answer would be wrong. And in this case, the data that was given us to fit into our storyline was faulty. But when we are able to finally learn the truth about what actually happened, it is only responsible that we come out and say exactly what happened and condemn what needs to be condemned. And I understand we are not minimizing La Republique's ability to come in and take advantage of such incidents to really paint us black. They came in because the first images that we saw coming from that report, which was probably produced by La Republique, were mostly those women who were bare-chested. You will notice that.
Right.
We did not even see these women that we are seeing now who are all clothed, which means that someone was now trying to slant the thing to look much more.
Of course,
terrible
they make good propaganda with it because it paints us black, and that is why you hear the international community says both separatists and the government forces are abusing civilians, whereas these boys do not belong to us. I am still dying for Comrade Siko to tell me who control those boys.
Comrade, what I want to tell you is that you shouldn't try to make me be the bad person here. I stand for my people. I have no interest. If anybody wants to be a president of Amazonia, I don't have interest. I fight for my people. If I am speaking here, I was the first who went even to the activist forum and called out those from Babanki and said, you cannot be quiet when we are having problems. I reported on that issue on 20th on the 20th of May, I made a video. It is on my page. I put these videos when you had not seen these pictures with this woman with the wounds. The last video I made, I analyzed the situation against the boys. Then I went to forums and I called most of the activists, called some of the defense people and told them that you cannot be quiet when something is happening in Babanki. When it will go out where you will come to defend, you will not be able to say what is happening. And truly, the narrative of La République du Cameroon is mostly out there. But the truth is that if you go behind the scenes and ask very well, you will discover a lot of truth which is different from the media. But I still stand for one thing. Nobody had a right to beat our mothers.
With you a lot. Because when you talk about activists, these guys are just loud sounding gongs out there. I have not heard a single activist, not even you yourself, comrade, condemn the ADF for blocking Mbengui Road. I have not heard you condemn the ADF for extorting from your own people in Mogamo. Well, what is the role of the activists?
Mr. Chris Andrew, where were you when I was the person fighting against the ADF every day in Mogamo, pointing out the ADF? Did I not have betrayal from all of you in the interim government?
I don't remember when
you included.
I don't remember when
when the day the ADF attacked, the last time they attacked, where they killed the commander of Guzang, when they killed one of the commander, I was with Henry, the younger brother to Iringwa, when we woke you up and you told me you will address the situation when you wake up from bed. When you woke up, was that boy not already killed?
Comrade,
you think you can always face people?
You are probably talking about 2-3 years ago. I'm talking of the current
act
of extortions.
You are the same person.
No, we are talking
3
about
years
today.
ago, and
The
the same person today is the same person.
blockage on Mbengui Road of today. What have the activists done? What have they said?
Is it today? Is it today that that thing started? When you in the interim government,
it has gone on for over 2 months. Where are the
when
activists?
When I was fighting the evils of the ADF in Baltimore,
you are using the past tense.
You in the interim government.
I am talking about now. What are you doing now?
You all in the interim government thought that.
All right,
you in the interim government thought that I was going to have a name. You instead fought against me.
So, Comrade Sikot, yes, you may have come out clearly against the ADF in the past, but that does not absolve you of the responsibility of doing the same now. We have to be consistent in calling out evil when we see it, brother. We cannot allow our people who are supposed to be protected to be victimized, exploited, used, and abused by the same people over and over and over again, and especially people who claim to be fighting in defense of our people. It's just not right. It is not right that the people of Guzang have suffered over and over and over from the destruction, I think it was of their water source or something.
I like those words you're using.
And the killing of the prince and so on. Let us be consistent, brother. We cannot let it go.
I have been consistent.
Just because we did it in the past. Let us stay the course and make sure we continue to call them out. We have done so on this platform, we have done so. I have personally done so. Call them out for what they are doing, which is wrong. That's not what this struggle is all about.
I have not stopped calling them out. Let me tell you, I've not stopped calling the ADF out. I've not stopped trying to stop their actions. What I just decided to do is to work more in self-defense behind the scenes than becoming an activist that will be crying every day and instead being fought by the same people you fight for. When I was fighting for the people of Mugamo, they told me I was not supposed to speak because only the interim government should speak for them. When I was telling them the evils that was happening, when I discovered even the evil places that my sister Irene and Sako sent me to do. And I said, we are going the wrong way. The same people of Mugamo stood against me because of the interim government. Today, I'm happy that Mr. Chris Ano has realized most of these things, and we are working and we are talking on behalf of the people. And that is the way we have to go. Not making me be an enemy, instead when I'm fighting for the people.
All right, Comrade Jackson.
I've been victimized so much.
Comrade Jackson, I appreciate you coming on and defending those boys and whatever that they
I've not defended the boys. That is a mistake. I'm not defending the boys. Please.
You kept pivoting and saying that the chief of Babanki had run to Yaoundé, was doing this.
So are you also defending La République du Cameroon?
To the hospital.
Are you defending La République du Cameroon?
I am not defending La République du Cameroon.
You are defending La République because the chief stands on behalf of La République.
To La République du Cameroon, you know that. But listen, for the interest of this struggle, we cannot just cover up stuff when we see them, because we are going to have that precedent expand to different fighting units. Before you know it, it will be hard to stop it. Let's call it, especially when you have rooks on the ground who have no commanding leadership.
The action is wrong. Your problem is because you are interested of knowing who are controlling them. Because you have lost.
If those who are controlling them cannot step out and show their faces, then they are accomplices to what is going on there.
And you have been an accomplice to many of the things that happen in Libya, and you did not point it out.
And did you see extortion
you
in Libya?
Did not.
Did you see abduction
because
in Libya? Did you see that anyway in Libya? So this is where you are making an error. We have some of the most disciplined.
We should not allow the Republic to paint an image for us
out there in Libya. Stop protecting rooks and cowards out there who carry guns to intimidate
them.
people with sticks.
As long as we condemn them, we should condemn them the same time.
Comrade, we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will open the phone lines for Ground Zero to come in and ask any questions or contributions that they may have. Please stay put. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for staying put out there. At this moment, as you have the phone line right there on your screen, you can go ahead and call and participate in this show. I see the phones are ringing already. Please, before you call, make sure that the volume of your television set is turned down. Make sure the volume is turned down before you call. Hello.
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. May I know where you are calling from, please?
From Switzerland, sir.
Switzerland. Okay. What is on your mind, sir?
Okay, I have 2 or 3 issues to talk about. The first one is what I can conclude from this incident concerning our mothers is that the act, especially coming from Seeker Johnson, is that this incident took place several days ago. Why is it that because he claims the handlers, why is it that no communique came out condemning this act? I mean, and why is it that the handlers themselves never came out to condemn the act? So because it's like if this show didn't take place today, we would not have got all these details, all these things, So we want to see the activists. Yes, they have to be proactive. They have to call out if they have activists among themselves that are controlling some of these fighters, and these fighters are doing the wrong things. They have to condemn it. I mean, they have to be outspoken about it. This is terrible, for our struggle, because the whole media, everyone is talking. The media around the world is talking about this, and it's bad for the struggle.
Right.
So we have said we want to work together. Working together means that when we see things like this, we condemn them forcefully. This is what should happen all the time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Can I answer him?
Yes, my second point is that Madame Suzanne came up, right?
Yes.
I really appreciated what she talked about. She's a very intelligent woman. She understands what's really going on in our struggle. What I want to ask from you is that, especially because what she said and what Thibault Nagy said the other day is that they want the frontline leaders to have a kind of a collaborative platform to work together, especially when it concerns the referendum.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you going to ask her to try to help talk with the leaders, to bring the leaders together? Because I think she can do it. You saw her approach. She said she can meet the leaders individually and talk to them, try to know what's going on. I think she can bring our leaders together, and let's have this collaborative platform and talk about this common issue, especially of referendum, so that we talk with one voice. What do you think, comrade?
No, you are correct, but it's not something that you and I will sit and agree on television. These are things we do in the background, but you are not far from the point. Thank you.
Okay. No,
can I answer the other question?
Correct. I take it. Absolutely. Thanks for the call.
You're welcome.
Can I answer the next question he asked about the boys? Can I answer the one he said?
I'm sorry, not hearing you.
Hello.
Yeah. Good evening, Mr. Criseno.
Good evening, sir. May I know where you are calling from, please?
Okay, I'm calling from Ground Zero.
Where precisely? Which county?
I cannot name the county, but precisely I'm calling from Bamenda.
Okay, what is on your mind?
Okay, I'm just watching the program you are discussing with how do they call this man again?
Gibson and Mike Fusi.
Yeah. I'm happy for you bringing up this issue of this mother that were molested in Babanki. We do not support this act.
Yes, I'm hearing you. Go on.
Yes. So my own contribution here is that we should caution our civilian, because we do not know. La Republic always have their agent who goes around and intoxicate some of our civilians to march against these boys. Are you understanding?
I understand, and I totally agree with you. We have seen it in Oku and different places, and when we see it, we know it.
Yes. So what I'm saying that our civilians should be very careful to go about striking against our guys. If there is any problem, I think they can table it to you people over there so that you know how to handle this situation. Know that they go on everywhere rising against these boys. This is what will kill down this struggle, because when Babanki will march today, tomorrow Bali will march, and after tomorrow the other people will get up and march, and that is how the civilians will take over the struggle.
You are very correct, but why hold on there. Why we caution the civilians to do the right thing and to avoid being coerced? by la Republic du Cameroon, we must also equally caution anybody who carries a gun,
Truly.
not to use it to
Truly.
force taxation on civilians.
These guys are carrying guns. Yes, we should be very careful.
All right, thank you, sir. Your connection is not the best. Let's get to the next caller. I appreciate it.
Mr. Cristiano, when the first caller said something about me, why are you keeping us in the dark?
The line is open, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and call.
When he's taking those calls,
so
he
many
doesn't
people
get
are
you.
trying to get across. Go ahead and call. The line is open at this moment. But the last caller is correct. We will never, here at this interim government, I have said things against some of these women that people say, oh, Chris is spinning it. Chris is spinning it. No, we don't spin it because we do not want at any situation, be they men or women, being coerced to rise up against legitimate fighters. But where the fighters are not legitimate, and I will say it again and again, that where they are not legitimate, as in the case of Babanki, we must rise up to it and condemn it. All right. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Can you raise your voice a little bit,
good evening.
please?
Hello.
Hello. Can you raise your voice a little bit?
Yes, I'm calling. Hello. Hello.
Raise your voice, please. Raise your voice. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Where are you calling
Hello,
from?
sir. Are you getting me?
I'm getting you. Where are you calling from?
Hello, sir.
I can hear you, sir. Where are you calling from?
Sir, I am calling I'm calling from Ground Zero.
Where on Ground Zero? Which county?
Are you getting me, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm getting you 5 on 5.
Okay, thank you, sir. Please permit me to say that I won't describe my location.
Okay.
I will tell you, permit me to even talk in pidgin.
That's fine.
Yes. I want for talk particularly for Siko Johnson. I and Siko Johnson, we are from Momo or Batibu LGA.
Okay.
Which Siko Johnson tried for is blaspheming. And in which way ADF of Interim in Batibu the Wakadi. Interim the leave from Batibu, that is from Okugwe, Gwe over to Pinyin, catch our fighters. Everywhere with the Yena ADF. Everywhere with the Krana for ADF their hand. And we know their leaders. We know who, and I believe we were one of their leaders. And they want to take this risk for talk say we did for Ground Zero. She got and his cohort they did for outside, they did abroad. May they know say go take that risk for talk anything now, and then they wait anything will happen, it happen. If you like for them take me send a family catch me send a me catch me, I know say I go don't play my own part for this deliberation.
All right.
Well, please permit me.
Okay.
For finalize for conclude anything here, I want for talk say anybody whosoever when the talk say unity, even though unity is a good thing, but may they know say whenever we go unite with ADF or we try for unite with ADF, we will know say we are going back to the one and indivisible Cameroon.
All right. Thank you, sir. I hear you.
Sir.
All right. Thank you for the call. I hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Cristiano,
Comrade
Can
Juicy, you want to
can
say
I talk?
anything to this caller?
Yes, I want to say something. I want to tell our comrade here that I've never been in the ADF, will never be in the ADF, and I will never dream in my whole of my lifetime. But let you know one thing. The day I talk with ADF, now they was I struggle for talk with Efang. I mean Ayaba for saying me stop killing my people. It was negotiated by John Bakoro. Since that day, that mass killing for Batibo, it don't end. And so that is why the things the way they happen now, it pain me. Now my people, the way they go collect that money for them. Today, so General Savior, where be they under interim government, if they under captivity. Now he give names of people for Batibo Center that they can't catch them. Go for ask them money, he not find me. Brother, all that thing then they think then that way, I be the cry say who come solve them. The ADF, yes, agree now they can't come home, we don't be inside Mugamo for a long time. I will never promote it. If I be solved some problem in the past, now for stop saying they don't kill themselves. Unfortunately, they don't use that peace, engulf the rest of the fighters. Many don't fight, run out of that village. Now pain. We Mugamo people need for look and now say the problem in Mugamo is not secret. They should let us all look at the problem and the solution inside Mugamo.
All right. Let's get
and for Santa and Babanki, I beg Babanki 1 minute. You don't talk and say I know one gain sympathy, but one beg say, well boy them don't do mistake. They don't beat one mommy them. We not get no excuse. But wait at the beg now say me one mommy they not ever leave themselves.
No, comrade, it's like you are blaming those women for what they went through. You are right to say the boys have faltered, but to go ahead and add those women is like you are blaming them for the punishment meted on them by those boys. But let's get back to the phone.
Until you investigate.
Hello. 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 This man calls and sits on the phone and won't talk. Okay, the phone line is open, ladies and gentlemen. I see somebody writing from Ground Zero. Good evening, comrade. Exactly what Madame is saying there is perfectly true. These guys harass young ladies every now and then. I think this guy is referring to the previous guest who was referring to university students going through a lot on the ground. He said harass young ladies every now and then, even young boys who are frustrated with the country and trying to make ends meet. They too suffer in this guy's hands, my comrade. For the big Babanki issue, I will not tell you a lie. These guys, I myself had suffered in their hands. There is one particular one who is always on the road with a mark on the jaw. He is giving hell to people. So if we don't take care, Ayabacho will kill this struggle. These are his ideas. We will put it on. We will put it on his head. The boys in Boyo have tried to caution these guys to at least treat their own people with dignity. Comrade, let me tell you, these guys for true are our guys. Okay, it's a little mixed up there. All right, the phone line is still open, ladies and gentlemen. He writes and writes. Let's see if there are other messages here. Watching from Boya, I think president is not the right way to put blames on someone. Tells you true. I don't know what you are trying to say. That comrade is talking where you are pushing an agenda which is not correct. Again, you are not putting it straight, sir. I don't know what you are referring to. Please go ahead and call. The line is open. Good evening, comrade. I have followed your questions to Suzanne Ghais. Brilliant and proud to coming to listen to ABS. I was following ACN of Ayabacho Ashu was saying IGs are sellouts. The only leader to free Amazonians is ADF. If groups speak as that, how can there be collaboration? I may not follow the Babanki case. Life is extremely difficult with Amazonians. So if ADF and other groups, thieves, go out as AROF to harass our own, they are only worsening our suffering with levies. Okay, we hear you, sir.
Mr. Mike Fossey, I wish to say something.
Yes, Mike.
Yeah,
yes,
I
Mike,
think it is worth at least talking about what Madame Suzanne presented, because we can't just gloss over it. I think she said some important things about collaboration, and we need to at least explain again the various methods of collaboration out there, and what each of the players within this struggle are practicing. I personally, prior to coming to the show, I took some time to do some findings about what collaboration is after all, and what forms of collaboration are out there. And according to the Kenneth Thomas, Ralph, and the Ralph Krillman model, there are 5 conflict resolution strategies, and some of which are the first one is avoiding. One of the parties simply avoids the solving the problem. In this case, comrades, that would be peculiar to La Republique du Cameroon, because they have been avoiding sitting down and trying to find a solution to this problem for so long. And what the tragic thing about avoiding a conflict is that you allow it to degenerate to a state where it becomes more cancerous, it becomes more difficult to resolve, and then people tend to suffer when you allow it to, because it's like a small scratch you have in your foot, and instead of treating it right away, you leave it there, you allow flies to settle on it, and before you know it, maggots are in there causing all manner of trouble. So that is what La Republique has done. They avoided solving this problem for so long. And then the next one is competing. Competing is a model whereby one of the parties tries to win at all costs. They want to be the only ones who have a solution to the conflict. And I think we can quote some of our comrades and some of the parties to this conflict are adopting that model, that it must be me. If it's not me, then nothing else. And what is so bad about competing is that it often leads to conflict. It often leads to the parties fighting with each other, because there is no effort at reaching out to the other side, trying to find a compromise. There is no effort at that. So the bad thing about competing is that it does not always lead to a fruitful resolution of the conflict, and it always ends up being very, very costly. I think we know those who are practicing that in this struggle. I don't want to name any names here, but you know who I'm talking about. Now, the next one is accommodating. Accommodating is one side simply decides to let the other side win. If it finds out that maybe dragging through a contentious resolution process may end up being more costly, one side may just let the other side win for the sake of peace. It is always not the best, but it is one of the quickest ways of solving a conflict. And then the fourth one is collaborating. This is one of the best methods of solving a conflict, because it aims at making sure that the parties to the conflict have a fruitful and lasting solution. And conflicts that are resolved by this method tend to have a resolution that lasts longer, because the parties to it are satisfied with the outcome of that conflict resolution process. And of course, the last one is compromising. It is very similar to collaboration, that the parties trying to find a mutual solution to the conflict without getting into serious fights or disagreement. They try to take into consideration the concerns of each side. So these are some of the methods that I believe Madam Susan was trying to bring to describe here, but she didn't quite spell them out clearly. And I think it is. I just thought that we should bring them out for Brazilians to understand and know which method will produce for us the best solution. Already, unfortunately, already we have passed through some very unfortunate stages of this conflict, being some are practicing avoidance, some are practicing competing, and that is the very reason why we are where we are today, because the methods that have been employed till now have not been the best and have led us to the loss of tens of thousands of souls. They have led to the destruction of property. They have led to the destruction of our economy. They have led to unnecessary migration and displacements of people and untold misery and suffering, like the one we are talking about today. We can blame these boys for what they did, but the ultimate blame for this, Comrade Chris, lies on La République du Cameroon. They are responsible for this. Because without this war, these boys would not have had the opportunity of doing what they did. We blame them for what they did, but La République cannot escape from taking the blame for all the chaos, the killing, the suffering, the misery that is happening to our people today. So I just wanted to make that point.
All right, thank you. And going back to Suzanne Ghais, I don't know if Comrade Sikor would have anything to comment about the interview.
Yes, I have something to say there. First thing is that she still spoke about unity, which also is the same Tibor Nagy had been saying for a very long time. And I wonder how long these people will continue to tell us about the necessity of us coming together to have this thing work, for us to work together so that the international community can take us serious. Even the referendum issue is not the best interest for me. But I have to go with the people because there should be a place where we should accept together and work with it. So that the people see a place where we now agree and work together. Negotiations, referendums, and so on, for me, is even like a distraction. We should get interested in more armament, giving the materials for the boys, making ground zero very, very hot. And that is where negotiations and referendum quests become strengthened. That is where I get more interest. Let us strengthen those guys, give them the ability. Ukrainians are not fools to deny negotiations because they want to arm themselves better. They continue to ask for jets. They continue to ask long-range missiles because they want to take some territories back before they can accept negotiations. Russians are doing conscription. They need to be prepared. So what are we doing? We need to do retraining. We need to do more recruitment and deployment, training and deployment. That is my interest. When I come to a show like this, I accept your show because we must keep the relationship with our civilians intact and make sure that La République do not infiltrate us and bring their narrative. And we begin to work behind them. That's why I accept your show. Let's work it and make it better.
All right.
To respond to Comrade Jason, it is good that you mentioned that the maintenance of firepower on the ground is imperative if we have to push for the outcome that we want. That is very true. But then how do we do this? We can compare ourselves with Ukraine as much as we want. Ukraine is asking for assets or help and tools to execute their war, and they are getting them. Who is giving us anything? Nobody is giving us anything. We are barely pulling ourselves up by our own bootstraps. So as much as we may want to compare with Ukraine, we are not Ukraine. And even amongst ourselves, there are thousands of us here in the diaspora. How many of us are actually chipping in to support this struggle? How many? Even some who were doing it previously are not doing it now. And that is why we have to push back against incidents like this one that help to dampen the support that we normally will have from our people. It is important that we call not just this one out, we call out wrongdoing wherever it is occurring. Where if it's in Kuzan, we do so. If it's in Bali, we do so. If it's in Bafu, we do so. If it's in the southern zone, let us call it out. Because when we allow these things to persist, it helps to dampen the little support that is coming from us only. There is no country out there that has come out to say, okay, we are backing these Ambazonians and we are going to provide them the tools they need to get themselves the freedom that they very much need and deserve. We don't have that. So we must be smarter how we use the opportunities that come to us. And there are people who have walked the corridors of diplomacy in this world, who are advising us and saying, this is what you should be doing, because this other path that you are taking will take you forever. And I think we can tell, because we have been going through walking these corridors for decades, and it took us nowhere till now. The only reason why people are even discussing the option of a referendum now is because we picked up these stakes to defend ourselves. If we were just depending on diplomacy and walking corridors, nobody will even be listening to us today. So let's be practical, let's be pragmatic, and make sensible decisions as we go forward.
Comrade Judson, I have put out a proposal which I circulated. I'm sure you must have probably read a copy of it, circulated among all the frontline leaders and the major stakeholders in this struggle. And I said, let's come together and agree on areas where we can collaborate in. And I mentioned, for example, the refugees, diplomacy, the fighting force on the ground, and many others, communication. And I said, if we come together, we can rotate the leadership of that council, whatever name that is given to it. If, say, for example, the ADF is having the leadership of it, they know they have it for 6 months or for 1 year, and after that, they pass it maybe through SCNC, maybe through IG, maybe to APLM. It just goes around so that no one group is seen as trying to dominate. And the ideas that are implemented are the ideas of the council. That means everybody. Will the activists, number one, do you see this to be a good idea, and do you see the activists picking up on this?
Mr. Chris, first thing is that we just had an all-Ambazonian activists conference. We invited all the leaders. We sent letters even to you. Unfortunately, you didn't respond, and you didn't send anybody.
I responded. I spoke with is it Silas? Who was I think it was is it Aaron? Either Aaron or Silas. I spoke with one of them. Yes.
Okay, we didn't get the feedback. It's unfortunate. Our intention is that we wanted to be a liaison between all the leaders, and then we wanted to strengthen ourselves so that we can complement the leaders in their efforts to doing things happen. So that if Mr. Chris Ano has to speak to, for example, let me say Mbo Herbert, and the relations not going, we could be the go-between, so that we work together and one. So that is okay. But what I want to correct here is that if you want others to come together to plan the best way for Ambazonia, do not already call them and give them their proposal. Tell them that we need to come together for the sake of Ambazonia. Then, on the table where we are discussing, you bring your proposal of where or how we should go. But if you already have your thing and you tell them that come and join me, let's walk it through this type of revolutionary council, they know that it's your thing.
No, I think you get it wrong. When you give them, and you call it,
You said
you
a
get the
letter.
right word. It's a proposal. They have it. They go through it. They have time to meditate upon it. So by the time you say, "Hey, can we come and sit down and just reason over these things? And if you have something better, maybe you present it." That is the way it should be.
Yes, and again, I still propose to you that a neutral broker should be called in to bring the rest of the leaders so that we talk. Because the truth is that the relations between the leaders are not good. We have fought ourselves in the past for too long.
I mean, USIP, United States Peace Institute or Institute of Peace, has been trying to broker between the leaders, but the ADF remains the problem. They've had 2 meetings so far with the United States Institute for Peace, comrade. The 3rd one is coming up, I think, in July. Okay, Mike Fossey, you have been there. Give us an account of what is going on there. You were representing us there.
Yes, Comrade Chris. It is very, without being very specific as to what has happened in there, but after our last meeting, there are indications that one of the parties is backing out, and you can guess who that is. And the only reason they are backing out is because of hard questions that are being asked as to their willingness to commit to the deliberations or the decisions that are taken in the House. Are they willing to, or on whose behalf they are speaking? Because you'll recall that when this initiative was launched, it was an effort to fuse both the stakeholders platform conference and the Unity conference together so that we have just one conference. That was the purpose. Then when we came in there, especially during the last meetings that we had, people started asking that, okay, but who is speaking for who? Is the stakeholders conference being represented here? Then some people started saying, no, we are not speaking on behalf of the stakeholders conference. We are here representing us. And then some members said, okay, if we are just representing you, then what's the purpose of this initiative? And then there were uncomfortable answers being given. People started being defensive. And after that last meeting, some people started indicating that they were not coming back. So there you go. Deja vu again. We've walked down this road before. So when Comrade Justin is saying here that a neutral party should bring us together, what other neutral party will you find that is more neutral than you say? They are not even Amazonians, for Christ's sake. And if we cannot even sit down with fellow comrades and just be honest with ourselves for once, and work for the suffering people on the ground, then what do we want?
My senior comrade, I reason with you. It's a pain to all of us. The truth is that if you listen to Tibonagi, there is absolutely little way for us to go forward if we do not. But I would not also say that we need absolute unity, 100% people to come together. Let me say it very clear. If the Argov Sea or the ADF is the pain of the Amazonian revolution, even the Bible says, cut off that leg. It's better for you to enter the kingdom of heaven than to enter with all the legs. It is the same. If the IG action that is led by Mr. Chris Ano is the problem, others should also link up together than giving excuses that it is Chris Ano. It shouldn't be like that. But whatever the case, we need tolerance at a certain point. And I think that where the activists are now, they are in the most neutral place possible. And they know their strength and their weakness. we can work with them and push it. I have been against activists because we have been a problem before. Leaders too have been a problem. But if we discover ourselves, I know you better than anybody coming from outside. So I can relate with you better.
All right, comrade, let's get to the phone. I have Samuel Thomas on the phone. Hello, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Comrade Chris and Comrade Mike Fusi and Comrade Judson. I've been following Comrade Judson here with whatever he's saying, but let me just take on the last point which he made about the letter which he sent out some months behind before the activist meeting in Brussels. It is disturbing when a comrade is saying that we ought to invite people without putting forward some points for them to know that this is what we are calling everybody to come and sit and discuss upon. You just go and throw it out there that you guys should come and let's sit and talk about what. I've never seen a conference organized without some few points put together to be a beginning point of discussion. So what I've seen in our struggle is that when people hate a group of persons, they do not want to see anything good coming from those persons or that person. Whatever that comes from him or them is wrong. Even Judas himself, at times I used to tend to appreciate Judas, that without Judas, mankind couldn't have been served by God. So Judas got a role that was positive for the survival of mankind. But for my brothers in the activist forum, that I say, taking baptism does not necessarily mean that you've repented from your evil ways. My brothers should go back to the drawing board and think again. So the way they are moving forward shows that they never went to Brussels to be a broker amongst all the groups or the leaders. They are just part of the problem and not a solution to the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We hear
Can I have
you.
just 30 seconds for the comrade?
Meeting without something on the table, and then people begin to ask you, what are you
can I give 30 seconds for?
Hold on, comrade. Let's get to the phones back again and say hello. 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 Okay, when you call, you have to pick the call then. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Comrade Chris. Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Ground Zero.
All right. If you can raise your voice a little bit, that would be better. Go on, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I want to appreciate the panel for tonight. And thank you for bringing them, Mike Fusi and our brother from Batibo. I'm also forgetting his name.
Sikot, yes.
Yeah, Comrade Sikot. Yeah, I want to appreciate all of you for the serious debate. Yeah, what happened in Babanki is actually what we don't want to be seeing. And that is the reason why if these people who have the handle of these boys can come out and and speak aloud for the people to know that these boys went out of hand because of this, I think it will be better than just sitting quiet. But if Comrade Sikot is saying what he's saying, I don't think that he's wrong saying what he's saying. You know, we must have a blame and we must have a backup to know that all of those people, they are all our people. Whether you are fighting for whose group or for which group, all of them are equal people. But we are on the ground, even though all of those things are happening, we are not happy that I will leave my house going to the farm and somebody will stop me and asking me to pay some tax. I don't think that it will be healthy for me to accept that. And I want to plead that you had a proposal during your campaign, and that proposal during your campaign was that there will be some kind of allowances given to these boys, so that they can stop this type of ransom taking, so that peace can return among the people supporting them. You know, the ground zero, if the people turn against them, it will be dangerous in their side.
Yeah.
If they are alive, it's because the ground zero is with them. So they are not supposed to do something that the population will get angry. If the population want this thing to stop tomorrow, it will stop. It's just that we have been suffering under La Republic. We have gone through marginalization, and we have decided that it should end as of now. But if our people who have chosen to fight for us will want to fight us back, I don't think that we want to take that. Yeah,
all right. I think we are all agreed on that. Thank you for the call, sir.
You're welcome. God bless you, sir.
All right. Okay. I will give Comrade Sikot Mike, please, 1 minute, round up. Let's call it a night.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And you know, I'm on the road traveling, and I had to stop in order to have this meeting. I'm in the car. So, but thank you for the opportunity. What I will first of all tell Mr. Thomas, who called from Belgium, that he was not invited. And so I don't know how he knows the letter that was sent to leaders. Number two, there was a follow-up letter.
He is referring to the letter that I sent out to leaders, not from not the one of the activists.
No, the one that we sent inviting you for the conference as a leader. It was for you, and then there was a handbook explaining when you arrive what we would do and the protection and everything. We specified those things. Even in Belgium, we called him to get a xylophone that was bought by the Belgian Southern Cameroonians, and we couldn't get him. I tried to get to him. I was to go to his house. We couldn't get him. So that one is past. I want to go to the next thing to say, Comrade Chris, I came to this forum so that we should look at the problem of Southern Cameroon. I didn't come as someone from La Republique side that we should be arguing. I beg you, Comrade Fusi is here bearing me testimony, when try to avoid bringing somebody here to rush the person down, tarnish the person, and gain sympathy from the population. It makes it very difficult. A lot of people want to refuse to come to your program.
What we are here to do, but we are
here you try to get sympathy by running my reputation down.
That's what we're trying to do. Wrong behavior should not be defended at any cost. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, let me finish. Why I said so is, remember, you accused me for killing Commando on your forum. I didn't accuse when I came to.
That's probably a long time ago.
You called me for an interview. The younger brother of Commando is alive. When I came to your program, first thing is that you said, I have killed Commando.
I don't remember.
So what do you have to tell the people
of killing? Us to go back litigating the past.
And I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you that you killed Field Marshal. It was totally too off. So let us avoid things when you don't investigate.
So, but I'm not sure.
No, what I'm saying is that we should investigate.
I don't know.
Even again, as a journalist.
Please,
no, we are not arguing, sir. I'm giving my last statement.
Yes.
We are not quarreling. I'm giving my nice statement. I was just giving advice.
Okay, but when you make innuendos, you are going out of the subject. So
remember that it was a live show. So remember, it is a live show, so it is still there. Don't rush down people. But we are working for Ambazonia, and it is good that this same ABS that goes to Ground Zero, we continue to promote it, because anything that is Ambazonian is our own. You are our own because you are doing it for Amazonia.
This is the only channel
we
that
should
is
be
giving
here.
You the opportunity to say anything you can say. All those other channels won't allow you there. But we do it here because we think we want to be fair enough to everybody. Thank you.
And for La République, du Cameroun, La République du Cameroun should not use. La République should not use problems inside Amazonia to paint their narrative.
No, sometimes we should learn how to take responsibility. The problems that are ours,
we will continue to condemn.
Fix them.
We will continue to.
Mike, go on, please.
Yes, thank you, Comrade Justin, for coming on. It was a spirited debate, and that is what it is, and that is how Ambazonian will be. We disagree and we make our points and we move on. So I think I appreciate you being on and providing some of the answers that we've had here. Yeah, with regards to the topics that we've discussed today, starting from the interview of Madame Suzanne, who was here, and following through on the happenings in Babanki too. Like we have said here, it does not help us when we go out and do things that are then used by the enemy to destroy the very thing that we are trying to construct. It's like you are on the road, the driver is there trying to climb a hill, and one of the passengers jumps out and is throwing logs on the path of the vehicle. It just does not help us. And I think we should stop inflicting wounds to ourselves while we're on this journey. If we're trying to make progress, let's make progress. But like I said previously, there are times when our information gathering or the initial information that we may get of these incidents may turn out not to be as accurate. But when we eventually find out the real circumstances of the situation, it is only responsible that we come out and state them clearly. Because when we finally lose the confidence of the people in this channel, then they will go somewhere else. And until now, I don't think there's any other news channel out there that is run by Amazonians that is as credible as this one. We try to make sure that we are as credible as possible, that when people hear something on this network, they can believe it. And we continue to strive to achieve perfection in that regard. Yes, with regards to the statements that were made by Madame Suzanne in analyzing her trips to La République du Cameroon and her interactions with the various operatives out there, I think it is very clear to us that La République is not yet ready to commit to finding a lasting solution to this conflict. But the problem is we will not wait for La République to simply get up and decide that, okay, it's time for us to find a solution. We have to compel them. We have to make it abundantly clear to them that we are not backing down now or anytime in the future until we get what we are fighting for. And that is by what we are willing to do on the ground. So, fellow Ambassadors, if we listen to that lady today, the interactions that she had there, though she said there are some who are willing to find a lasting solution through negotiation, but there is yet any effort on the part of La Republic to prove to us that they are willing to do that. And when it comes to the issue of the referendum, I know she was non-committal about it, but fellow Ambassadors, let me tell you this. She was speaking as a diplomat, someone who does not want, no, these people do not want to come out like they are supporting one side against the other. It is our responsibility to compel them, especially La Republique, to come out and buy the idea of a negotiated settlement to this thing. I know some people are saying, oh, it must be negotiation, or it must not be a referendum, or it must be this, it must be that. Whether it is negotiation or a referendum, this thing will have both components in it to resolve this conflict. Because La République, you will not sit with La République du Cameroon and ask through some foreign, maybe the UN or some foreign body, to compare them to say, okay, now that we are sitting at the table, we'll simply let the people of the Southern Cameroons go. No, it will not happen. It will have to be decided through a referendum. If people say we are not there yet, okay, if you say we are not there yet, that does not bar us from talking about it. We have to be doing the things that are necessary for us to get there. So I thank you again, Comrade Chris, for bringing us in today to help in at least educating and enlightening our people on the happenings on the ground, and especially in terms of diplomacy as well. And I will look forward to doing this again tomorrow.
Thank you, Comrade Mike and Comrade Secord for being part of the show today and taking on the heat. I do not mean any harm, but I think that we must protect this struggle to the expected end. Else, at the end of the day, all of us become collaterally responsible for some of these acts. The international community will not listen to us because they keep on saying both sides, whereas we know it is some rogue elements among us who are carrying out some of these deeds. Thank you for coming in, and before I go, I'd like to remind everybody that on Sunday, we are all gathering here to support Manu Drive. If we are talking about firepower, we have to come together to raise funds for Manu to make sure that that firepower goes on in Manu County. It's happening on Sunday. I guess the Zoom link should be out there, but we will also be live on ABS. We know what is happening in Mbengui, and when I come back up on Monday, we shall tell you what we will do with the divisional officers in Mbengui and the mayor in Mbengui. We know what they are doing, trying to do there, trying to shut everybody, and I mean everybody down in Mbengui. We will not allow that to happen. We want the traders to know we are following up what is going on in there in Mbengui. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I appreciate your presence. I look forward to seeing you on Monday. God bless you all, and good night.